Did we test together?
We certainly did. Don't you remember?
No, I have a terrible memory.
I can tell you all
Jamie.
about it because I remember.
Okay, please do.
Yes. So I'd only done one test before for Joss Whedon for Firefly. And I've got to praise you this as well. I think the first actor in the world to do self-tapes. But I did them on VHS. And then I had to transfer them onto PAL. And then I had to FedEx them to the US. So that worked once with Joss. He said, okay, I want to see this. And they tested me for Firefly. And I flew all the way over on my own dime and did the test and then flew back and didn't get it. The following year was Battlestar. So that was my only other experience of doing a test. And
wait. Jeremy London, one of the London brothers, also tested. Yes.
He did.
Okay.
He did.
Right.
Yes. But what happened was, and it was like an episode of Survivor or something. We were all in that big NBC building. And I think there were maybe 6 or 7 Apollos and probably the same number of Starbucks. And we were, what they do is they give you a massive contract, which your agent supposedly negotiated, and you sign your life away there and then. And they won't even sort of let you into the room until you've done that. Yeah. So by this point, Kerry and I have already, in another moment in town, sat down and going, this shoot's in Vancouver. This contract says 7 years. We live in London. We're about to have a kid. This is more money than I've ever made in my life. What's the deal? What's the right answer here? And I think I knew what the right answer was, but I needed to obviously make the decision together. Yeah. And eventually we made that decision. So by that point, I was a go. But we got to the NBC thing and there were 7 of us. And I think we went in one by one initially and read alone with
casting.
But we went in and eventually there was a moment. And I think I remember being in the elevator lobby, and I do remember this. So Michael Reimer comes out after we've all been in once, and we've all been sitting around looking at each other, sort of sizing each other up, going, "Oh well, that guy's way more right for the role than I am." And I hid in the loos for a lot of it, actually, so I didn't have to talk to anyone, because that would mean exposing myself as British or putting on an American accent, which wasn't the lines that I'd learned. And I wasn't prepared to do that. So I hid for a lot of it in the loo, going over the lines. Anyway, I emerged at some point to the elevator and Reimer came out. And he literally, just read a bunch of names and said, "Oh yeah, thank you guys very much for coming, but you can go." And then there was me, and I think it was Jeremy London, and you and Grace Park.
That I remember. That's all I remember, is that it was me and Grace and you. Yeah. All I remember is Jeremy London.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because
you knew who
he
was.
was the only one that I was like, oh, I've seen him on TV.
Yeah, right.
I remember booking the role and thinking to myself, I remember being there at that point when it was down to myself and Grace and thinking to myself, this is mine. I just felt in my heart that I was right for this character up to that point. Up until that point, I don't think I thought I was right for it. I thought at that point, because I remember being too young and she's too girly and she's too this and I was too everything. But then I remember getting to that point, to that test, and testing in high heels, because I was like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. But I remember when I booked the role, saying to my parents, because they happened to be in town, and I remember saying, I hope they cast that girl as Boomer.
Wow.
Because she wasn't right for Starbuck. Yeah. But I feel like she would be right for, because I really liked Grace. I really liked her. She was super cool.
So was that your confidence? More thinking, well, Grace would be right for the other role and not this one? Or was it just innate in you? You think I'm going to, or is that just your approach to auditions, that you tell yourself, okay, this is mine? Because that obviously is something that you need to have a bit of that in order to convince as the character. You don't want to be doing what I do all the time, thinking that guy's way better. I'd pick him. So
have you had those moments when you've walked out of an audition and you just knew that the part was yours? You just knew it.
I have.
So that every time I booked something.
And then it wasn't.
Really?
Sometimes. But I have had what you're talking about. Every
time I booked something, I've known. I've
Right.
known based on my performance in the room, and if I felt like I was, like, I could just tell, I could read the room enough to know when I walked out if something was mine or not. And so I called Starbuck after I walked out of there. And every job I've booked, I've called it if I've been in the room, because I can like read what casting's thinking.
I half agree. I've never been surprised and stunk up a room and it gone shit and then had the call, yes, we love you. That's never happened. People tell me that it happens all the time. But
supposedly, not to me.
Not to me. I have to absolutely kill it. The room has to love me. And even then it's 50-50. Like I've had things go the other way when I've been convinced I got it. I wasn't convinced I got Battlestar. I thought it had gone as well as it could go. And so what happened is, obviously I read with you and I read with Grace, and I think you did the same with Jeremy London, who I've never met.
No.
I would love to meet him one day. But I felt all right. And I left and I was so nervous, and I drove home sort of buzzing. But then I got home to Alan's, back to the little flat under his house in the hills, beautiful place. And Kerry was there, pregnant, big belly. And we just sat down and sort of decompressed. And literally within, I think, half an hour, Alan invited me upstairs. And he knew.
Yeah, interesting.
He already knew. And actually, Angela Mancuso, who was someone he knew, had come over to tell me in person that I was hired.
Really?
So then I was flying home the next day. And so that precipitated a good night. We had a good time and called some friends. Denny Rubianis, actually, the guy I used to room with, on the couch. We called him out and celebrated with him. And then I flew home the next day. And then a few weeks later, back in London, everything sort of settled and I, went back to normal life. And that's when I heard that you'd been cast. And I heard straight away actually that you'd been cast. And I heard that they were going to make an offer for Grace that night. Huh. And then I heard that Edward James Olmos got cast. And then I thought, oh dear, he looks nothing like me. They're going to have second thoughts. And anyway, I
remember thinking that too. Like, I remember thinking to myself,
nothing like me. We're from different backgrounds. I thought, oh no. Anyway, and then the call didn't happen. Eventually, the only call that did come through was, you need to get in shape and we're going to pay for a personal trainer to do that for you in London. And so
they paid for you to have a personal trainer. They did not pay for me to have a personal trainer.
For a month. And then I was on my own for 5 years.
There you go.
But for a month, I had a personal trainer in London to whip me into shape. I think they weren't convinced about me. I'm pretty sure, for the longest time, if they ever were. So, and I sort of felt that vibe that I had to prove myself constantly on that set.
Really?
Anyway. Yeah, definitely. I don't know. Yeah, no, definitely. And I've heard
always feel insecure?
No, I felt insecure until season 2. Beginning of season 2, I settled down. But yeah, for the miniseries, I felt constantly someone's going to tap me on the shoulder for season 1. So all the way through. And that was long after Eddie told me to dye my hair and he would wear blue contact lenses, and that was going to be how we would sell this thing.
Yeah, and hire Zach to be a little bit closer to Eddie.
That's right. Zach was the swarthy dark one, and I was like my Scandinavian mum.
Yeah.
But actually, I look at it sometimes now and I see Eddie in his blue thing and I kind of buy it. And Eddie is my dad now anyway. So joke's on them.